another edition of Booty and Rachel. It's unfiltered. We talk football and lots of other things, neat things coming up. We're going to get into the food world and maybe the hunting world, and going to interview some rock stars coming up and former quarterbacks. But I'm excited to have my quarterback, my co-host, Josh Booty here. All right, Josh, big weekend of football up ahead in just a few days.
Yeah, we've got 5 big conference matchups this week, and it all starts with the Texas A&M at Ole Miss game. That's really the only top 25 matchup within the conference and nationally that we have this week, and so I think that's kind of the premier matchup. But we do have some wonderful ball games. We've got Kentucky going on the road at Mississippi State. Kentucky, if they wouldn't have lost last week to Auburn, would have been 5-1. They go in 4-2 and play a Mississippi State team that's 5-2. That's another great matchup. And then you got Tennessee on the road at Bama and coming off a bye week. So there's a lot of good football that's going to be played on Saturday.
All right, let's just start here. I've got a surprise. So I pulled this out of my hat for you just today. So this rivalry between Tennessee and Alabama is 100 years old, right? So about 50 years ago, Alabama started smoking a cigar if they won after this victory, when it was Tennessee, Alabama, and I think it's the third Saturday in October. And it was started by their trainer, Jim Goosetree. And Nick Saban, the past couple of years, he said, we do it, we don't do it, stop asking about it, because, you look at the NCAA violation and the non-smoking violation. Well, Josh Booty, I know you're developing your own line of cigars, so I wonder
I'm all for it.
Can we get your cigars next year into the hands of Alabama so they can smoke the cigars when they beat Tennessee?
Yeah, but they got to win first. Yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd love to have Saban and his bunch smoke our cigars, but I'm a huge cigar connoisseur, aficionado, or whatever you want to say about a guy that smokes a lot. But I enjoy a good cigar, and I think that back in those times, 100 years ago, cigars and cigarettes were more prevalent than they even are today. So it's a fun tradition, I would think. I'm back at LSU a few years back when I was playing Tommy Tuberville, and Auburn came in and beat Jerry DiNardo and our LSU Tigers. And it's kind of a famous thing that he did there at Tiger Stadium is he came out onto the field after the game, and as a staff they smoked cigars and lit them up. And that's usually a sign of a big win or something that happened good for you or for your team. And so it's just something that's been around forever. But I love the idea of smoking cigars after a win.
All right, so you got to tell everybody when this cigar line's coming, how they can get it. I mean, listen, if you can't plug yourself on your own podcast, when can you plug yourself?
Yeah, you're right. We're in the development stages, so we're putting all the pieces together. So I don't have a timetable really on when we're going to launch the brand and the cigar, but we've put a lot of work into it. We've got a great marketing team, and my partners are wonderful. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a bucket list thing for me to do as an individual, is to be a part of a cigar brand. So that's something that I look forward to trying to put together in the near future. And I know you like to smoke cigars too. We've had a couple cigars together and enjoy a nice cigar lounge. And so they're always fun, and it's always been something that I've wanted to do.
All right, and one more teaser. We got an event coming up the Thursday before the SEC Championship. It involves cigars, Atlanta, former SEC athletes, and our viewers and listeners. So we'll let people know about that. But Josh, back to the game. Now that I've given you this plug for cigars, we're gonna make that happen. We'll send them. We'll make them. Nick Saban will listen to you. You played for him.
Oh, he better. I don't know. I know that he smokes cigars. I've never smoked a cigar with him, so I might have to enjoy a cigar with Coach this offseason. Maybe we'll go down there during spring ball and spend some time with him, at his home or something, and smoke cigars and reflect on everything. But that'd be a lot of fun for sure.
All right, so let's talk about this matchup. All the matchups you mentioned. We talk about some of the games in the SEC before we get into this Tennessee-Alabama game. When I was writing my notes and getting ready for this weekend, you know what I thought? I thought, what a season of lost expectations or unfound expectations. These games, if you looked at them, before the season started, they all had a lot of panache, a lot of glitz and glamour around. And I'm not saying some of these teams have just lost one game. Some of these teams, their season went astray.
I already know what you're talking about, and that's Auburn and Arkansas. Seems to me that's exactly what you're talking about. But you're right. I mean, it's some teams that should be in a lot better situations right now.
Absolutely. So, well, let's start there. What do you think about this Auburn and Arkansas game? Because it felt like Auburn found a little bit of offensive rhythm, and somebody said something last week, and you and I had a great discussion about it in Louisiana last weekend, and that is Gus Malzahn a scheme coach, or is he a coach that can coach at any time, at any situation? It seems like he's coming out of that scheme coach of coaching the guy that he wants, and now is learning how to coach a guy in Sean White that wasn't what he thought he was going to get at the beginning of the season in Jeremy Johnson. And so it seems like they found a spark at Kentucky.
They've had to they've had to revamp their offense. Jeremy Johnson is a dual threat guy, a guy that they thought was going to be a lot like Cam Newton with his ability to run with the football and make great plays and also be a heady guy and complete balls. He's got a very strong arm, but he had such a hard time at the beginning of the season making the reads that I think Malzahn requires of a quarterback in that offense that his expectations were a lot higher than his ability at that point, and they had to make a move. And so Malzahn's now playing with a quarterback who doesn't have those physical attributes of a Jeremy Johnson, but is a better probably passer right now in today's time. I guess with what he has on offense. I mean, you got to look around at who's around you and the situations that are at hand. And Sean White was the guy that he had to make the starter because Jeremy wasn't getting it done, and it's allowed them to. Yeah, they've had to change their identity, but it allowed them to progress as an offense now because he's played in several games. He's been the starter. He's got his feet wet, and they got a huge win last week at Kentucky. We didn't know how that ball game would come out, and Kentucky's got a pretty good football team. So for Auburn to win, to get that win last week versus Kentucky and Sean White kind of get going, that's going to help Auburn in the long run. But I'm a big Malzahn fan. I love the way he coaches. I don't think it's, his system's awesome, but his play calling ability is awesome. The way he coaches and uses the whole field is great, and he's got a good defensive coordinator there. They've just got to get better players in there. They've got to get a little deeper. They've got to get some momentum going, and that's something that they can do with a big win at Arkansas. It's not easy to play against Arkansas.
So the Auburn fans out there will be happy to know this. I talked to Jonathan Wallace earlier this week for Gridiron Now for a piece I'm writing about him, and he lost his starting quarterback job in 2013, and we talked about Cody Burns, another guy who went from quarterback out of Arkansas to wide receiver, and I asked him, how is Jeremy holding up? And he said, you would not believe it, Rachel. He said he has the best attitude. He said he has done a really good job of blocking out all the distractions, all the negative talk. He's coaching, up his teammates in practice. He's got a positive attitude. He's not dragging his head. Yeah. And that's what you want to see, Josh, when you get knocked off the pedestal you're on.
Yeah, it's just a good character guy. Whether or not he was the right fit for the team at that point, and he wasn't ready and prepared probably himself, and he knows it now. He saw that the team could not win with him at quarterback, so he's got to go back to reach down in deep inside and say, I've got to get better as a quarterback if I want to play. I've got no hope of playing on Sundays, especially if I can't get on the field here at Auburn on Saturday. So I think he's got to reach down deep inside and find out what he's made of, what he can bring to the table, and get better with what he was really bad at, and try to advance himself as a quarterback. Because you never know, he's one play away from being thrown right back into the Lions' den again, and he's got to be more prepared this time. He's got to show everybody that, when I was on the bench, I was working towards what I think I need to be doing better as a quarterback. So, that's a huge compliment to him because he was such a hyped preseason player in our conference, and for him to sit back and swallow those pills that he had to swallow and become a stronger guy I'd love to see him play some in the future just because of what he's had to go through and deal with.
What do you think about these two coaches, Brett Bielema, Gus Malzahn? You mentioned what you said about Gus Malzahn, but Brett Bielema, he's loud, he's gregarious, he is unfiltered, and he has not made any bones about the fact that he does not like Gus Malzahn and does not like Auburn.
Well, two contradicting styles of play too. If you just look at both teams on the field and what they bring to the table. They're built differently. He's built. They're physically built differently too. These guys are polar opposites when it comes to their identity and how they prepare, probably, and how they even recruit and who they go after. And Bielema is always a guy that isn't afraid to talk a little smack and get in the middle of stuff. And I think that's where this game becomes a lot more fun when neither of these teams are vying for for the West title this year, and when some thought that they might be even in national title contention. It's something that now this game's interesting, and Bielema knows how to be that kind of guy and get his guys ready for a big game. I think that's what he's got to do. He's got to find ways to get his guys up to play this game because they're 2-4. And needed a win desperately.
Yeah, they need a win desperately. They also need to learn how to score in the red zone. There's some times where it just seems like they don't take advantage of opportunities. I think their red zone scoring ratio in the red zone is not too great. So they need a chance and learn how to punch it in. A lot of people thinking that Arkansas is going to edge this one out. What's your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I like Arkansas in the game because it's a home game and they're desperate. I think Auburn's starting to play a little better. Arkansas is favored by 5 or 6 points in the game, so I'd have to go with Arkansas. Vegas usually knows what it's talking about, but it's gonna be one of those knockdown, drag out games because neither team can really afford to lose. They don't want another loss on their resume. And the game's at Arkansas, so I got to go with Arkansas. I really feel like they'll win this one.
All right, back to that Alabama-Tennessee game. Even though this rivalry's been down, and I think Alabama's won it like the last 8 years, they're riding a 4-game winning streak. People will tell you, Alabama fans and Tennessee fans will tell you that this is the real rivalry, right? There's Alabama and Auburn. There's the Iron Bowl. There's a hate they have for LSU that's associated with Nick Saban. But this is the real old school rivalry, 100 years of football. And Joshua Dobbs is the #1 running quarterback in the league, but I think like the 10th rated passer in the league.
Yeah.
We saw him kind of have a coming out party against Georgia, but he's going to face a nasty front in Alabama.
He will. You nailed it right on the head. Alabama's playing the best defense in college football right now, and everybody knows it. It's just, this isn't as big of a rivalry game as Tennessee wishes it would be. They have lost all those games in a row, and for this to be a real rivalry, they've got to start winning them. And they could surprise Bama because Joshua Dobbs is a very effective quarterback. He's played well the last 2 games. They had a bye week last week coming into this week. I think it's all going to come down to his decision making and what he's going to do with the football. Or is he accurate in the pass game? Does he pull it down and run and make positive plays to keep them, in situations where they can do some damage on offense against a defense that is better than them, on paper? And that's what it comes down to is really Joshua Dobbs and the athletic ability that he brings to the table. And I think you would agree with me.
Absolutely, I do. And Josh, on the other side of the ball, Tennessee has an underperforming secondary, let's just say that, and versus a guy they're calling the Vanilla Vic, Baby Roethlisberger, and Jacob Coker. I just wonder if that big guy gets a chance to showcase his arm in the passing game versus that secondary.
Yeah, he needs to. He needs to have a big game against Tennessee, being at home. They're with their offense starting to develop into it's his offense. Players are starting to believe in him. I thought Coker his first 3 or 4 games weren't the best games I've seen out of an Alabama quarterback. And they always recruit the best players. They've always got they've always got great depth at every position. But there was a real race this offseason on who was going to be the QB, and Coker landed the job. And I think he needed to earn that respect, and he's just now getting to that point where he's earned the respect. Now everybody's going to ride him. Early in the season, Saban even pulled a fast one and started Bateman for a series in one of the games, and I thought that showed a little lack of respect to Coker. And now that I look back on it, it probably hurt his progress a little bit. So I think he's got to do a good job of just not making mistakes in that offense with those running backs and with those receivers and great tight end O.J. Howard. It's just playing football and letting the game come to him, not trying to do too much. Don't make mistakes, because early in the season I think he was probably pressing, and we didn't see the Coker that we'd all thought we would see.
All right, you talked about that Ole Miss Texas A&M showdown right there in Oxford, and we're going to shoot actually in the future to Blue Delta Denim there in Oxford, and they're making me. He came this morning, fitted me for a pair of jeans. I'm like, Josh Booty is next. I'm like, since when do I get custom-made jeans? I'm like, this is the perks of being a sportscaster. But we're going to go there very soon. But this showdown, I had this one circled a couple of weeks ago, and you said, not so fast, my friend. You just wait. You don't know if somebody's going to lose between now and then and take a little bit of luster off that matchup.
Yeah, you got the denim jeans, you got the flannel shirt. You're a country girl living in Nashville. This game's going to be great, and I'm looking forward to so many games this week. There's a lot of football to be played. There's teams that we thought weren't ready, or we know weren't ready for the national scene, and we thought they might be. And but I think as a whole in the SEC, we've really got 3 really strong teams, in my opinion. I think A&M and Ole Miss are the 4 and 5. I think LSU, Bama, and Florida are the best 3 teams in our conference. And we talked a little bit last week after Florida lost on the road at LSU. Florida's got a real chance to get right back in this thing. They lost by a touchdown in Tiger Stadium, giving them their first loss. If they run the tables, and they've got Georgia next week, if they run the tables and get to the SEC championship game and really play well at the end of the season, Florida's a team that could jump into the playoff, BCS playoff picture, and that's just huge for a team that we didn't even know what product we were going to get at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, you mentioned that Florida team. Kind of a neat piece of news we were talking about before this podcast was their kicker's got a leg injury, Austin Harden, and so Jim McElwain. I covered his wife at Alabama. I did a story on her. I see him at SEC Media Days. He comes down the hallway and gives me a high five, and everybody's like, "What? Are you on high five status with Jim McElwain?" I'm like, "Well, I did cover him at Alabama, but I just think he's innovative. I think he's loose. I think the kids have bought in. That shows." He goes out and has an open tryout for all the students for the kicking position, right?
Yeah.
And how cool is that? He did this at Colorado State.
Yeah, no, you can't win without a kicker. That's first and foremost. I mean, everything comes down to, in big games, it seems to come down, especially in the NFL. There's a series or 2 here or there that make big differences in ball games, but it always comes down to special teams or a field goal or a late touchdown, a 1-possession game, and in these tight games. And it did last week for Florida. They LSU threw the fake field goal and scored against Florida, but that was really the game winner. So you cannot go into a big SEC matchup or any of these games without a good field goal kicker. But I like the way he did it. Open tryouts, bring your own cleats. Show up and let's see if you can kick. And I bet you he finds a pretty good kicker with all the soccer players probably in Florida and in the state of Florida. But that's a pretty unique situation to be in, to not have a kicker at this point in the year.
You mentioned the Mississippi State-Kentucky matchup, and John and Mary Beth Bond are good friends of ours, former quarterback there. He was like the Johnny Manziel before there was a Johnny Manziel.
Yep,
and we're going to get him on one of these podcasts. But you and I had a conversation post LSU in Florida, and that was about Dak Prescott. You know how much I like the kid. Personally, I like him. On the field, I like him. And I asked you, do you think he's done enough from a passing perspective, from enhancing his skills as a quarterback to be taken higher at the next round? Did he do the right thing by coming back besides just doing it for his mama?
I think he did. I think he's shown. I think he's thrown 270 something passes this year without an interception, and that's protecting the football, and that's the number one thing that you want to do as a quarterback is protect the football. And I learned the hard way at LSU because I was more of a riverboat gambler, kind of like a Brett Favre. I'd run around and try to make plays when we weren't there, and Manziel's kind of like that. So he's the polar opposite, and he knows when to hold on to the ball. He knows when to run with the football. He knows how to get it out of bounds and throw it into the stands if it's not there. He's just a smart player, and he's very, very patient. Even with his runs, you can see he'll take the shotgun snap. He'll take a second, and then he'll see where the hole's open, and then he'll make his moves if he's running QB draws. And I think that's just his personality. He's such a strong, mentally strong kid. I love to watch him play, and I think he's, the first half of the season, he would be my All-SEC, first team pick. I mean, the guy's playing with no run game. He's the leading rusher on his team at this point in the season, and who would have thought that? Because Mississippi State has a stable of guys, but Dak Prescott is leading the team in rushing and passing, and so he's the ultimate weapon right now in our league on offense. Could you imagine how good Alabama would be if they had a Dak Prescott on that team? They would be unbeatable. And he's just a wonderful kid. But Mississippi State playing Kentucky this week at home. Kentucky throws the ball around. Toles can spin it. And, they're not a team to take lightly.
All right, Josh Booty, I'm going to give you the final word, my partner. What's Josh Booty looking at this week? And what's on that whiteboard, Josh Booty's whiteboard, right? Tell everybody what they should be watching for. I got a few things on.
We got a good game tonight. I don't want to look past tonight out here on the West Coast. I'm in California, but we got, Cal at UCLA, and we've got a quarterback. I pay a lot of attention nationally to the quarterbacks, but we got two really good quarterbacks going tonight in the college game out here out west, and Rosen and Goff. And so to watch these two kids and play tonight is going to be fun. A great Thursday night game. Both these teams need a win. I think Cal's probably a little bit stronger right now because they haven't dealt with as many injuries as UCLA. But in the SEC, Texas A&M and Ole Miss, both teams are looking to get their sixth win. Texas A&M is a team that got beat up pretty good last week against Bama, and for them to try to rebound on the road is going to be a tough one for them. And I look for that game to come down to the end.
All right, Josh Booty. Until next time. You can follow him on Twitter, JoshBooty10, at Rachel Baribeau. Also, Gridiron Now. We'll see you soon.